for letting me play my song tonight. That song has been with me for a long time. And so many aspects to it, the theology of it. I think of John 17, Father, make us one, that the world might believe. So many aspects to it. It fits, as David will know, with our Te Koinga ministry. It fits with the restoration of marriages. It's a beautiful picture. It fits with the multicultural nature of our societies today compared to what they were years ago. I've been in Tauranga for 50 years in a couple of months. So I'm born again here, if you like. This is my home city. It's the city of my children, my family. Anyway, thank you, Colin and Grace. Thank you, Guyan, for what you're doing in the background there. It's my pleasure to share briefly some thoughts and prayer for the welfare and the residents of Tauranga, Rotorua, Whakatane cities, and the wider Bay of Plenty. Through Colin's prompting, I actually phoned our friends in Whakatane and Rotorua because I'm not in regular contact with them, just to get some current issues of concern, and they'll be on the screen later. The total population of the Bay of Plenty region today is approximately, probably more than 340,000 people. It's a growing community. Tauranga is the fourth largest city in the country today. There's some facts there, for example. So Tauranga, 160,000 people live here. It booms in the summertime. Whakatane is also known as the sunshine capital of New Zealand, but it's got its own issues, which we'll touch on in a minute. You'll see the makeup of our region. Those numbers don't add up because many people are bicultural, but approximately 73% are European, 29% Māori, big percentage in Rotorua, Whakatane obviously, Pacific people 3.5%, and Asian peoples 7%. And that's a significant part of our Tauranga, Te Puke, Katikati community, especially with the Indian community and others. There's 5 Korean churches in Tauranga. There's 1 Chinese church. There's two, and there's several other Pacific churches as well. But a bit of background about myself. In September, I'll have lived in Tauranga for 50 years, 35 years as a follower of Christ. I was divorced 40 years ago. I'm a single man today. I'm in my 80th year, and I'm at peace. I'm at peace with myself and my family, which is good. I met yesterday with my family. My former wife was there, which is lovely, and my grandchildren. Special time. So God has blessed me in that regard. In 1990, I woke up in terms of Tauranga on the history of the Treaty of Waitangi and its significance, its obvious covenantal nature. And I began to do some of my own research on the history of Tauranga City. This was following a visit to Rotorua with Catherine Hollister-Jones, which some of you will know, dear sister. And we went and heard firsthand from Māori leaders and John Dawson on the significance of the treaty, which I didn't know, I didn't understand. And that has colored my thinking ever since. In 95, David and I connected to a group in Tauranga called which became Te Koinga, a group concerned about the history, but not knowing quite how to connect with Māori leaders. A lot's happened over those 28 years. I won't go there, but it's been significant. There's many stories there. I can tell more if people want to approach David or myself. But the gospel entered Tauranga City in June 1826 through Henry Williams, the treaty man, and Māori received it willingly. And the great move of God took place. Things went wrong later, no question, as it went wrong across our nation with the land wars and the like, cut right across this whole region, Bay of Plenty. The Waikato Bay of Plenty were just devastated in terms of the impact of the gospel. And as David has said other times before, the issues happening in the church are closely connected to the issues of our history and our current story as well. So we can't ignore the history. I like what God says in Psalm 78, tell the next generation what God has done. We need to do that well, but we also need to acknowledge the shortcomings of the church and the things that are wrong that are affecting the gospel today and things to be in prayer for today. Over these years, I had 15 years of working as a part-time associate chaplain in local prison, Waikato prison. I've established a marriage ministry. I've been a marriage settlement for 25 years. I've been involved in missions. I served at Faith College for 13 years. Again, it gave me a huge diversity of other cultures and nations, and knowing how to work with people of other cultures and nations. But I want to just say something that I think is maybe a challenge to you. I realize today, certainly in Tauranga, I can't say much beyond that, I don't see high regard for the treaty within the Church of Tauranga, or respect, which I believe, it's clear to me, that the treaty is of a covenantal nature. But I see a connection, which is a painful thought, that as we've seemed to have disregarded the covenantal nature of the treaty, we are disregarding covenant in terms of marriage and relationships as well. I put that thought to you as a point of prayer, that God might call us back to remind ourselves of the covenantal relationship with him and with others, whatever the relationship. Whakatane, let's start with Whakatane. I talked to a friend, Grant Bateson, who's the chairman of the local Ministers Association in Whakatane. And I've not been current, so I didn't want to say too much, but you may have been aware from the news, there's been some real issues in Whakatane and Potiki in recent times with gang issues and murders. I'll say something carefully. Grant said to me on the phone that in per capita, that Whakatane and Potiki is becoming the murder region of New Zealand. That's a very strong thing to say. Per capita. There's been horrific things happening there. And there's a gang connection that they are praying about. They met recently, 10 church leaders, 5 Māori, 5 European, to begin to pray and intercede. So they're asking us to pray for them over those issues as well. There's also looking to embrace this concept, which you may have heard of the police and Te Hahi, where there's a partnership developing, as there has elsewhere, with the church and the police to provide pastoral care for those who suffer from crime. Okay, that's happening as well. That's a positive thing. They also ask you to pray John 17 for unity within the body of Christ. In Rotorua, I spoke to Rob Williams from the Presbyterian Church there. Homelessness is a huge issue there, and housing problems as well. Gang culture is affecting the community widely, but they still see by faith that Rotorua can be a place of restoration. Rotorua population is, as you saw on the screen, 1/3 are Māori. So I would suggest there's a need there for the church and that community to get a better sense of how they can re-engage with tangata whenua. I'm more familiar with Tauranga, of course, and so is David. The reconciliation process is underway. We've had some runs on the board. I won't say too much about engaging with Māori, engaging with the city, and also the Crown. We've attended all the treaty settlements in Tauranga, which unfortunately are still delayed through no fault of Māori. There's been some major mistakes made by the Crown, engaging with other iwi nearby outside of Tauranga that have cut across the Tauranga settlement. It's a frustration. With all these years of waiting, it's a frustration there. We're connecting with the City Council in September. We're going to meet again with the civic leaders who are commissioners appointed by the Crown, because the present, the previous City Council were dysfunctional, with some exceptions. And the pro-democracy people are making a big noise, and we understand that. But we believe the commissioners are doing a good job. They're doing some tough things, and so we respect them, we're praying for them, and we have a working relationship with them. So we're committed ongoing to this issue of reconciliation, restoration, and restitution. And John 17, again, is just a long-term prayer focus for the church in Tauranga. We've got elections next year when the commissioners will finish their task. That's an issue to be praying about. We need a whole new range of candidates, mayor and councillors in the coming season. We're out of sync with the rest of the nation, but that's part of our challenge. There's a major inner city redevelopment taking place. The inner city has been dying economically. Retail and other commercial operations have been dying through, but that's partly to do with some of the history that the Crown have been, previous councils failed to deal with, if I'm blunt, and the commissioners have doing their best to deal with it. But there's a major redevelopment being planned in partnership with Māori, which will be, I believe, good for our city. We were praying for strong marriages and family life, as everyone is across the nation. There's a big Indian community here, as well as Muslims as well. And we're alongside the Kiwi capital of New Zealand, Te Puke. Every year we gather in Te Whaki and pray for the harvest. And there's ups and downs, but we continue to pray for God to bless that and the financial blessing to bless the wider community as well. We see Tauranga City as a place of safe refuge and for equipping and mobilizing a new generation of workers for the harvest. I'd love to connect with anyone who's watching on screen now, who lives in a community where they'd love to do something to help marriages in their community. I've got some thoughts. I'd love to see what we're doing in Tauranga, I guess with a very small group, to see marriages strengthened. Bob McCroskey kindly gave me a site at the recent Family Forum in Auckland, so I could promote what we're doing. And we made a start to tell that story beyond Tauranga. But we're looking to promote Marriage Week. We've got the major events coming up here in Tauranga for Marriage Week in September. But we're also looking beyond now. Recently, we gathered with a small group at Mount Wanganui, because in 2026, it'll be 200 years since the gospel entered Tauranga through the proclamation of Henry Williams, the CMS Missionary. So I'm trying to connect with others to see whether we can pick that up and make it a focus for the church, for the city, and for Tangata Whenua as well. So that's basically what I want to share. There's prayer points, all of those issues. And I'll spend more time in Tauranga because I'm more familiar, and it's still the largest city in this region. So I guess my heart would be that we would understand and maybe learn to pray where we are for the iwi and hapu in our different communities. But the main iwi in Tauranga are Ngaitarangi, the largest, Ngātarangi Nui, and Ngāti Pūkenga. And we have a working relationship with them, but sadly, different kaumatua and kuia, they pass on. And we're going to keep working for the next generation of leaders. And I bet every church on the nation ought to be doing that, in my view, to intentionally crossing the road and building that relationship again of trust that the early missionaries established so well and so clearly.